Alright, what is going on? Today we're going to be putting 128 gigabytes of storage and a 3000 milliamp hour battery in this iPod Classic 5th Gen. And we'll also be switching out the back as well for a brand new one. So let's get into it. So this is probably the easiest iPod to open up and repair and do upgrades like this on, because it comes apart just like this. Just simply held together with some metal clips and pops off very easily. Now we can undo this battery connector here, and there we go, there's the inside of the iPod. Now we can disconnect the hard drive. We can put that off to the side, and disconnecting the headphone jack flex cable. Alright, we can put the front plate off to the side as well for now, and we'll just focus on this back plate first. So let's get the battery out. I'm going to weaken the adhesive using some isopropyl alcohol, and then using a plastic tool to just pry it out. When you're removing the battery, you want to make sure not to damage this headphone jack flex cable in there. Sometimes if there's a bit of adhesive covering over the headphone jack flex cable, you can tear the lock switch apart. Anyways, we can take this and dispose of it safely. Alright, and since we're going to be replacing the back plate on this one, we can go ahead and unscrew the headphone jack flex and the little charging port cover at the bottom as well. So there's just 2 screws there. And a screw there, and another one here. Now we got to get this tape up. And we can just pop out this headphone jack flex. Again, being careful not to damage it. And for now, we can just put this off to the side on my magnetic mat. Now we can unscrew this little charging port cover. These are actually very fragile. You can crack these very easily, so just be careful when handling that. And now this is our old backplate. We can just put that off to the side. Alright, so here's the new backplate we'll be putting on. As you can see, it's the original silver color. But it's also worth mentioning, you can get these backplates in a whole different range of colors here. So we got blue, green, purple, gold, rose gold, rainbow, a bunch of different colors, and this new green one, which I've just gotten in literally just now. So this is a new color for me. This one's more of a emerald green or a turquoise or a teal sort of color. Yeah, there's a bunch of different colors these things come in. And then there's black as well. I don't have a black here at the moment. Yeah, so if you want to customize your iPod Classic, worth keeping in mind that you can get stuff like this. And you can also change out the front plates as well. Alright, so let's screw the headphone jack and stuff into this. There's our 30-pin bezel back on. And now let's get this headphone jack in. Before we put it in, actually, another thing you want to do, since we're using a 3000 milliamp hour battery in this build, what we want to do is remove this little piece of plastic here on the side of the headphone jack, because if we leave that piece of plastic on, the 3000 milliamp hour battery can sort of squish this down. It can cause a tear, and then you'll get no audio. So you want to remove that and then fold this down so it's flat. Now we can screw this all in. Ended up putting a slightly longer screw on this one, since it was having trouble reaching with the little black one. But if that's happening to you and you've got one of these aftermarket housings, you can use this screw here, since that one's slightly longer and it's got the same threading as well. And the black one's still going to reach fine in that position. Alright, now let's move on to our storage. So as always, since we're using the slim version with a 3000 milliamp hour battery, we're going to need to use an iFlash quad adapter, because this is the only adapter that's actually going to fit. Alright, since we're going for 128 gigs of storage in this one, just use a single 128 gigabyte micro SD card and putting that in like this. Now this is a 5th gen 30 gigabyte originally, right? So it'll be able to handle 128 gigabytes just fine. But one thing to note about the 30 gigabyte version is that it only has 32 megabytes of onboard RAM, whereas the 60 and 80 gigabyte versions have 64 megabytes of onboard RAM. And the effect that that's going to have is just how many total tracks you can get onto the iPod, because there's a file that the iPod needs to load that pretty much stores the track titles of every song that's on the hard drive. And if it runs out of RAM, then your songs won't display. So yeah, realistically, you can probably get about maybe 15 to 30,000 tracks onto this iPod. It depends on the size of the tracks and stuff. Yeah, so a good amount of storage for this. 128 gigs works fine. 256 gigs will also work fine. It depends on your music as to when you'll hit that limit of the 20 or 30,000 tracks. But yeah, 512 gigabytes might be pushing it on this model, and I definitely wouldn't recommend 1 terabyte. You might be able to get away with 512 gigabytes, so it might just be a bit slower, or almost definitely you're probably going to run out of memory before you fill up the 512 gigabytes. So yeah, right now what I like to do is, as you see there, I put some Captain tape first and then some double-sided tape on top, just to sort of adhere this iFlash quad down, just stop things from wiggling around in there. You don't have to do that part, it'll still work properly if you don't tape it down. And I like to push that flex cable down like that, because if we don't, this 3000 milliamp hour battery might crush it when we go to put this in. So let's plug this in. Get that clipped in. Here we go. Now we got to restore this with iTunes. So what you want to do here is just simply plug it into your computer. Just get that plugged in, and now it should come up in iTunes like this. We can just click restore iPod, and there we go. Alright, so there we go. Now the iPod's finished restoring, and I've put some music on it as well. And if your iPod didn't restore and came up with like an error message or something, first thing I'd try is a different cable. If the different cable doesn't work, second thing I'd try is reformatting the SD card through disk management. And if that hasn't worked, I would look at the SD card, and if it's a SanDisk SD card, it's probably just not compatible in the iFlash adapters. So at that stage you need to switch out your SD card. If it still doesn't work, then I would check the HDD flex cable, which is this thing that connects to the iFlash. And if it still hasn't worked, well, I would probably suspect it's an issue with either your iFlash adapter or even the connector on the logic board itself, or even just straight up a logic board issue. So that'd be my order to test things in. You can always try replugging the iFlash as well. But the iFlashes, yeah, they generally don't fail very easily. I've never had one fail on me. So yeah, it's not very likely to be due to a faulty iFlash adapter. But anyways, let's give this a little test. Just grab our headphones, plug them in, and we'll test things like the headphone jack, the audio, which seems to work. Click all our buttons, make sure all our buttons click properly, which they do. And once you've confirmed everything works, maybe check the lock switch as well, which works. Once everything works, we can seal the iPod back up. So before we do that, just make sure the battery is sitting in the correct position in here. Once it is, we can just seal this thing shut. Might hear some clips as it goes into place. Alright, and there we go. We have our iPod Classic 5th Gen with 128 gigabytes of storage and our brand new rear housing, which has gotten a lot of fingerprints on it already. But as we know, these things scratch and get fingerprints very easily. So yeah, alright. And there we go, this iPod's now fixed and ready to be sent back to the customer. So if you have an iPod like this that you want to get modded, you can book here on my website. Or if you want to do this mod yourself, I'll have links to buy all the parts down in the description as well. It's not too difficult on this one, but of course some people like to just send it in anyways, just in case, because if you break something, then, well, it can be expensive and it can be annoying, and some people just want to get it done right the first time. So that's why, if you're one of those people, you can send it in to me and I can just do it for you and take all the hassle out of it. So not only does this iPod have much more storage than it did originally, the battery life is going to be much better as well. So the 3000 milliamp hour battery we put in here is a bit over 4 times bigger than the original. The original one was 650 milliamp hours, and yeah, this one's 3000 milliamp hours. But not only that, the SD card is going to consume less power than this original hard drive did. So instead of getting, I'm not sure what the battery life was on it originally, but with this setup, it should honestly be able to get maybe 80 to 100 hours of continuous playback, maybe even more. It depends how much the screen is used in that time and stuff like that. Obviously, all use is different, but yeah, just depending how you use it and stuff. But in terms of actual music playback, should be able to get a very long time. So in real world usage, you won't have to charge it that often at all. Alright, but anyways, if you like this video, thanks for watching. Give it a like, subscribe to the channel. Hope to see you next time, and bye.